heavyweight fight with Muhammad Ali in Africa. And as I thought back at it, and my remembrances of that fight, I thought he was never prepared for a fight of that stature. How did he look back upon that experience?
So if you talk to him about the fight with Ali, he was really confident. And to be honest, a lot of the boxing world was also pretty sure not just that Foreman was going to win that fight, but almost a little concerned that the damage done to Ali in that fight might be irrevocable. But when Foreman gets cut above the eye and the fight's postponed, you've got an interesting situation. Foreman will tell you he was in the best fighting rhythm of his career end of September when the fight was scheduled, ready to go. And then it's delayed for a month. But Muhammad Ali was also saying he was in the best fighting shape of his career end of September when the fight was supposed to go. And so now they both have to navigate this month-long hiatus. For Ali, you know, he had been diagnosed by Nation of Islam's doctors as hypoglycemic, so he starts eating sweets and putting on weight and getting kind of frustrated. Foreman is the opposite, where he can't fight, so he's running a lot more and he starts losing a lot of weight, but he feels like he gets out of rhythm. And so two of the greatest fighters of that era, maybe in their prime condition, had to wait a month, and probably both of them came back at the end of October when that fight happened, a little less sharp than they would have been a month earlier.
Well, let's talk about George Foreman after his career and how he made the transition to doing what he did, and a very smart businessman, reality TV star, doing infomercials. How did all of that come about? Did it come naturally to George?
I think there's a little bit of just a natural business acumen. Some of it is learned. He had been around people like Dick Sadler, who was very, savvy to the business side of boxing. But Foreman also just sort of had that natural skepticism, which you really need in the fight game. You know, he was very skeptical, cynical of other people. And even, after he wins the title from Joe Frazier, he actually fires Sadler as his manager, chooses not to re-sign a contract, and decides to manage himself because he thinks, you know what, I know this business well enough that I can do it on my own. It turned out to be more challenging than he thought in the 1970s, and I think that's part of why you see such a frustrated, angry, sullen George Foreman by the time he gets to Zaire to fight Muhammad Ali. But when he comes back again a decade later, he had more experience, and I think he was really prepared to manage himself through this really weird, deregulated sport.
I also felt that he knew what he wasn't, and he turned to those who did. And that was a smart thing on his part, but he really had one thing going for him. He tapped into his personality, which has always been outgoing, been fun-going and everything. To me, that was one of the keys to his success in doing what he did after his career. Am I right about that?
That was absolutely crucial. And so one of the parts of his story that we missed, though, is when he comes back after losing to Ali, 1975. He doesn't really fight again for about a year. In 1975, when he comes back, he's already realized that he needs to be more popular and more likable if he is going to bring enough pressure on Ali and his managers and the Nation of Islam to give him a rematch, because a rematch would be a dangerous fight for them. And so you already see him 1975, 1976, doing more TV spots, going on religious channels and the Crystal Cathedral, and just trying to be more outgoing and more likable. And I think it really did work. He was doing well on TV, he was bringing pressure, and then he loses that fight to Jimmy Young. He has a near-death experience and a born-again moment in the dressing room, and he decides to leave boxing for a decade. So I think he had already started that in the mid-1970s. When he comes back in the late 1980s, I think he is well aware that if he is going to make it in boxing, if he's going to get another shot at the title, it's not about being the best boxer. It's about being popular, likable, and people wanting to see you in the ring.
We've got about 2 minutes left, but when you think about his life in its entirety, he's been able to reinvent himself after his boxing career a number of times. Not a lot of people can do that. Why George Foreman can do it?
I think he just understands what people want to see, and he's willing and able to make the changes and to adapt himself to the moment. And so when he needed to be more likable, he was more likable. When he needed to forefront his religion, he could forefront his religion. And when he needed to sell grills, he could walk up on the stage and pull a burger off the grill and put it in the bun and take a bite, and all of a sudden the phones ring off the hook, and we're selling hundreds of thousands and eventually billions of George Foreman grills.
He was a crossover guy when it came to race, and I was always amazed by that. Give me some insight on that.
Yeah, that was another very conscious decision. And to this day, he does not like to talk about race, and I think he's a firm believer, as optimistic as it is, in a post-racial America. And even from the 1980s, 1990s, that was firmly in his mind, that he didn't want race to be an inhibitor. He wanted to appeal to anyone, anywhere. And so, that influences everything from the endorsement deals he does to the journalist that he and his team selected to help him write his autobiography in 1995. He very consciously, purposefully wanted to be a crossover, post-racial icon for the turn of the millennium.
Well, congratulations on this book. Are you happy with the way it came out?
I'm really happy with University of Texas Press. I think they did a great job. And, every day there's probably more I could add to that story because we're talking about a living celebrity, but I'm happy that I could help contribute to the conversation of at least the first, chapter of George Foreman's life, and maybe someone else will have to come along and finish it in another decade.
Congratulations, Andrew. Come back and visit again on Sports Byline.
I would love to. Thank you so much for having me.
Andrew Smith, the author of the book No Way But Fight George Foreman and the Business of Boxing. We continue on Sports Byline.
Securing America.
The U.S. is warning about China's continuing advancements in global technology. Attorney General William Barr says Beijing is plundering innovation from the U.S. as it works to dominate high-speed 5G digital cellular networks.
The stealing of technology is not a sideshow. It undergirds and propels their efforts.
FBI Director Christopher Wray says the agency is investigating around 1,000 cases of Chinese tech theft across the country.
We're talking about everything from Fortune 100 companies to Silicon Valley startups, from government and academia to high-tech and even agriculture.
Wray says wind-vine technology and cutting-edge medical devices have also been targeted. China calls the allegations baseless. Barr told the Center for Strategic and International Studies if China is allowed to have the upper hand with high-speed 5G, the nation could shut countries off from vital technology. In Washington, Rachel Sutherland, Fox News.
I'm a lot of things. A daughter, a sister, an airman, sometimes a cook. But the other night, I was almost a victim of sexual assault. The guy I was out with started to become really aggressive, almost violent. But thankfully, this other guy saw what was going on, came over, and diffused the situation.
Sexual assault happens all too often. If you notice troubling behavior, get involved. You can keep an unpleasant situation from turning into a crime.
I am so glad that guy stepped in.
Did you see that? You see that play? See the name on that jersey? David's right here on these ABUs. That's my kid.
Yeah, nice play.
It's almost like I'm there. So glad I got to see that.
Video chats and streaming of events back home are just a couple of ways the Family Center helps families cope with separation. As tough as deployments are, your Family Center is here and there to assist families in lots of ways that can help bridge the distance. The Family Center, because family also serves.
I'm Lance Corporal Garrett Gillespie with your Marine Minute. Happy anniversary to the Single Marine Program. This year celebrating 25 years of building the legacy of Marine Corps leadership. MCCS facilities across all installations are launching an awareness campaign to commemorate this anniversary and highlight the benefits that the SMP continues to provide across the Corps. In 1995, the SMP was initiated to provide forum for Marines to identify quality of life issues and recommend solutions. Today, the SMP takes pride in representing and empowering single Marines and providing recreational and community involvement opportunities for all single Marines. Check with your SMP coordinator and see how you can participate. All commands are encouraged to host and promote the 25th anniversary activities. Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, Sergeant Major Troy E. Black, had this to say.
Marines, for 25 years, the Single Marine Program has played a vital role in building leaders that will become the legacy of the Marine Corps. Congratulations, Marines. You are the legacy.
That's it for your Marine Minute. For more news around the Corps, go to marines.mil.
You're listening to the American Forces Network. America's Sports Talk Show, Sports Byline USA. Here's Ron Barr.
That's going to wrap up this hour of Sports Byline. The author, Andrew Smith, he is an assistant professor of sports management and history at Nichols College, and he has written the first biography on George Foreman. The book is called No Way But Fight, George Foreman in the Business of Boxing. This is a very interesting book. I'm surprised that nobody, as I mentioned in the interview, had already done a biography on George. Then we talk some football with Matt Forte, former NFL running back, drafted in the second round by the Bears, went on to play 10 seasons in the league, 8 with Chicago, 2 with the Jets, and boy, he was a dual threat. He could not only run with the football, he was one of only 3 players in the 1,000-yard rushing 100-catch season club. I'm Ron Barr. Hang around because we've got more coming your way on America's Sports Talk Show. I'm Ron Barr, host of Sports Byline USA. We get together each weeknight to hear from the biggest names in sports. So we invite you to join us at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific on the Sports Byline USA Broadcast Network.
Has climbed above 1,000 in China as medical authorities try to figure out where the epidemic may strike next.
Admittedly, that is one of the biggest questions facing health experts, second only to how to stop it, says World Health Organization Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus.
Is it getting better? Is it getting worse?
A team of WHO experts are in China to work with health officials there to answer those questions. On the treatment front, the WHO's Dr. Mike Ryan says they have the virus isolated. It has been for a while now, which helps in the work to find therapeutics and vaccines, but is also used to
test for the presence of the antibodies to the virus.
I'm Jim Roop.
Democratic presidential hopefuls are courting voters in New Hampshire ahead of tomorrow's primary.
Elizabeth Warren from next door Massachusetts is looking to do better than polls suggest, a possible 4th or 5th place finish, worrying about who's going to take on Donald Trump.
So what's it going to take to beat this guy? And I think back to hard fights. I think back to unwinnable fights.
For Warren, the unwinnable fight tops on her list is family and friends who told her she should not become a teacher, just get married and be happy. Bob Costantini, Rochester, New Hampshire.
The Trump administration spending blueprint for the upcoming fiscal year. Correspondent Linda Kenyon explains.
The president's $4.8 trillion budget is an election year declaration of spending priorities. Congress will counter with a budget of its own, one that reflects its spending wish list. Congress and the White House ultimately will meet somewhere in the middle with the final budget plan, but that could be months away. In the meantime, the president's budget offering gives him and members of Congress, as well as other presidential contenders, plenty to talk about on the campaign trail.
Wall Street started out the trading week with gains. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed up 174 points. The S&P up 24. I'm Ann Cates.
Fox Sports trending now.
A busy and wild night in the NBA. We start in Dallas, where Utah has a 123-116 lead over the Mavericks. 134 to play in the fourth quarter of that game. Jordan Clarkson, 25 points. Donovan Mitchell has 23 for the Jazz. Meanwhile, San Antonio is in Denver, and the Nuggets currently on a 39-13 run. 10 players have scored for Denver. They've come back from a 23-point deficit and now have a 102-99 lead, 8:55 to play in the fourth quarter of that contest. Miami is at Golden State. The Heat early up, 20-13, 4:09 to play in the first quarter, while the Lakers leading Phoenix 27-23, 2:59 to play in quarter number one. I'm Ralph Irvin.
We are
Recovery from mental and substance use disorders is real. You can recover. It's possible. It happens every day.
Never give up on yourself.
Discover hope and help.
I thought I was too far gone. I wasn't.
Join the Voices for Recovery. The world is a beautiful place again. For 24-hour free and confidential information and treatment referral for mental and substance use disorders for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
I didn't donate blood because I need my blood.
The fact is, the average adult has about 10 pints of blood. Only one is needed for donation. Plus, you'll start making new blood immediately. If you're a healthy adult who weighs 110 pounds or more and can meet other requirements, then you can donate. Make the connection, not an excuse. Donate blood. Visit militaryblood.dod.mil for more information.
We all play a role in keeping our community safe.
Every day, we move in and out of each other's busy lives. It's easy to take for granted all the little moments that make up our everyday.
Some are good, others not so much.
But that's life.
It's when something doesn't seem quite right that it's time to pay attention.
Because only you know what's not supposed to be in your everyday.
So protect your everyday.
If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
Here's what's happening on the home front. Lending a hand for even the smallest project can help your community in big ways. Serve.gov offers toolkits and blogs to help you get started. Get ideas on how you can organize a volunteer event in your area. Something as simple as a book drive helps reading achievement. Go to serve.gov for more information. And that's what's happening on the home front.
Where in the world are we? The children of this country dress up and go trick-or-treating on Easter. You can view shimmering waves of green and blue light in the skies here, and its capital is spread across 14 islands. It's one of the most beautiful major cities in the world, famous for design, fashion, and world-class nightclubs. Where in the world are we? We're in Sweden, and the capital is Stockholm.
Welcome, Agent. Your mission, America, is to identify this state. It has the only city in the U.S. that sits inside of a meteor crater. Thomas Edison introduced the incandescent light bulb here in 1883. Perhaps the most sung song on the planet, Happy Birthday to You, was created by two sisters from this state in 1893. Know what state it is? It's Kentucky, and the capital is Frankfurt.